everybody. This is episode 2 of Concepts with Kalanta. The concept this week is property investment with Jack Henderson.
And then, so this is going, you just start sharing, boys.
Okay, so we're about to start sharing. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Concepts with Kalanta. The concept is property investment with Jack Henderson. We're just going to take a few seconds to get everything going. We've got... Just wait. Yes. Great. I'm sharing it now. If everyone could be so kind, it really helps a lot if you share. So just hit share, because that would absolutely get us some more views and get the concepts out there.
And when you're ready, you go.
Let me check how you look, Jack. How you doing, Jack? You good?
Really good, buddy. How we going?
Have we gotten it?
I'm just sharing now.
Beautiful. Because sharing is caring. Thank you.
Boom.
Boom. Okay, let's start the show. Hello, everybody. It's another week of Concepts with Kalanta. I am your host, Jahan Kalanta, and this week's concept is the concept of property investment. Property investment is probably one of the most challenging asset classes that you can ever have anything to do with. I used to work in the financial markets, and when it came to property, I'm a complete novice. But my guest today, Mr. Jack Henderson, isn't. Jack, at a very young age, has an extensive property portfolio. He's working as a buyer's agent for one of Sydney's top buying agencies, and he has some really interesting insights into the property investment world. He is, I think, the definition of a young gun. Thank you for joining us today, Jack.
My man, thank you very much for having me.
So we'll start with, I guess we'll start with this, Jack. Why property?
Good question, mate. Look, it's been very beneficial to myself. It's something I've got a good understanding of, so it just works for me, mate.
Yeah, I've heard differing accounts from differing people as to the scope and the volume and the value of your portfolio.
Yeah.
Is there a consistent language that people use to talk about a portfolio, or when we say portfolio, what do people exactly mean?
So I guess when you're talking value of portfolio, it's the current market value of portfolio. It doesn't necessarily mean how much money you have. You could have a $10 million portfolio and $9 million of debt, so your net worth still only $1 million. Or you could have a $2 million portfolio and zero debt, so your net worth $2 million.
Yep.
Your net worth with a $2 million portfolio and no debt is worth more than a $10 million portfolio with $9 million of debt.
Okay, and so how many properties do you have?
Me, I've got 3 at the moment. Purchasing my 4th.
And how old are you again?
22, buddy. 22.
So to give you some context, I'm buying my first property. I'm 31. I'm just entering the market now. What made you make the decision to buy that first property, and when did you buy it?
Yeah, so I guess my 30-second story was, look, I wasn't the greatest student at school. I got expelled at 15. Went and got a job in the construction industry with my father. At 15, I guess, when you get expelled, your future's not looking too bright. So, I started earning money, and I thought to myself, look, I've got to do something with this money. I can't just have, no education, no money, and then be a dead shit for the rest of my life. So I started saving, getting educated around different ways to make money and how to make money work for you. Property stuck out. It worked for me. I understood it. Got some mentors, and then purchased the first at 18. So that was a 2-bedder in Coogee. Done really well. The city market was moving quite well over the past few years, as most people know, and that sort of catapulted me into my second, third, and now 4th property. It's about a just sub $4 million portfolio.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And what do you say to people who say that it's the market's impossible to break into?
Look, I mean, it's your mindset around it, isn't it? It's not impossible at all. My brother, for example, just purchased his first property. He's 26 years old. He's got a young family. Works his ring off, saved the deposit, and got into the market now. if he can do it, I've got faith that most people can do it. You know, it's about working hard and having that mindset of nothing's impossible.
All right. So, I mean, we now kind of have a bit of a brief overview of sort of your story and sort of, what interests you and what kind of got you into it. It's something that you're that passionate about that you have actually, you've actually moved into the space.
Yeah.
So, what does you're a buyer's agent?
I am, yeah.
Yep. What does a buyer's agent do?
So essentially, a buyer's agent is a walk-in, walk-out service. So you walk in with a brief of what you want. We do everything from sourcing the property, negotiating, custom building, valuations, property management, and you walk out with a property of, if it's an investment, the best possible investment we can get for your budget. If it's an owner-occupier home, you walk out with the perfect property, and we do everything for you. So I guess the model is suited for a lot of people, but I'd say that the best possible use of a buyer's agent would be for someone who's time poor, who doesn't really understand the real estate market, and who knows that they should concentrate on their strengths. So if they're good at making money as being a lawyer or a landscaper or whatever you do to make money, put all your time and effort into that and let us worry about the property side of things. And it's the same as us, as a buyer's agent, I wouldn't go and say that I'm a doctor and diagnose myself, or go and work on my own team. I go to a dentist, or go and represent myself in court. You outsource that to someone who knows what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of oracles in the property field, far more than I think any other field. You open the papers and there's somebody who says it's doom, it's over. If you talk to someone else, it's definitely going to go well.
Yeah.
What's your personal opinion?
Look, continue.
Well, what's your personal opinion? How did you form that opinion? And what do you say to people who hold a slightly different opinion?
Look, I guess when you read things, especially in the paper and online, you have to look at what their vested interest is. Look, someone obviously has a vested interest in pushing you to make a decision to go and buy shares, they're going to say, they're going to talk down on property because they want you to think the property's no good and you need to put your money somewhere, and you can put your money with shares. That's where they make their money. And it's the same as property. A lot of property guys probably say, look, don't go to shares because property's a thing. They've got a vested interest. That's how they make their money. Look, I think you need to have an open view. I think when you talk about the market, there's no such thing. Well, let's talk about the Sydney property market. What is the Sydney property market? There is 1,000 different markets inside of Sydney. At the moment, let's talk the current market. I think Sydney's eastern suburbs, for example, the $1 to $1.5 million investment market, very, very strong. Very strong. Are we seeing prices fall off a little bit? Sure. I don't think prices are falling off. I think that there's just less buyer demand. Last year, this time last year, probably 15 buyers at an open. Now there's maybe 5.
Yep.
Now if let's go out west. Let's talk new house and land packages in Marsden Park, for example. Prices have come off. Yeah, that property market has fallen quite dramatically. And that's because of the fundamental of supply and demand. So these developers have got all this land. They've developed because there's been so much demand for the property and they're keeping up with it with supply. Now, all of a sudden, it's gotten a bit harder to borrow money from the banks. The sentiments change a little bit. We've got the election coming up. So the developers have developed all this land. They're now left with 1,000 properties they haven't sold. The holding cost on those properties is quite substantial. And they have to move them. So to move them, they drop the prices, which then affects all the property around them.
Yeah.
Look, and let's talk the high-end market in Sydney. Mate, there's a lot of things selling for the 10, 15, $20 million price range. So it's hard to put everything at the market, It's hard to say the market.
That's such a good point you make. I mean, in an earlier life, I studied business and economics, and you do sort of you almost forget that there's some fundamental realities to life.
Yeah.
When you look at these econometric models, and you look at this, you think it all happens in a vacuum, and it just simply doesn't. You're right. If you've got a family, you need somewhere for them to live. Doesn't matter what's going on with anything else. Now, it might be a better time to buy that right house. You might be willing to, in a hot market, you might be willing to settle for something that's not perfect, whereas now people might be a little bit more, stringent. So what do you say to those people who say, well, we had a good run. It's the end of the property market as we know it. There's an enormous adjustment coming, and, Winter is coming.
They've been saying that for hundreds and hundreds of years, haven't they? Look, this is the end. Property can't possibly get any more expensive, and all the other rubbish they're going. Look, let's just look at a couple of fundamentals. There's more people that are moving to Australia and getting born in Australia. These people need somewhere to live. These people want to live in desirable locations where there is no more land, and there is a lot of people, and there is only a certain amount of property. So what is going to happen to the price of that property? If John Smith and James Smith both want the same property on Edward Street, and there's going to be competition. Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's how it works. John Smith has X amount of dollars, and so does John, and so does Fred, and whoever caps out first is. That's just how it's going to work. There is always going to be demand for property, and when there is demand, prices go up.
You said something a little bit earlier about mindset and
Yeah.
about the mindset around property and the mindset around life. Your concept is property, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a forum to go off on mindset, because for those that don't know, Jack is a very dear friend of mine. We've been friends for a relatively short period of time, but we get along like a house on fire, and he's a very passionate, intelligent, articulate young man. And I think school would have been terrible for you, I imagine.
And I was terrible for school. Yeah.
But just tell me a little bit about when you talk about mindset.
Yeah.
And maybe we can loop it back into the concept eventually. But what's your general mindset around sort of, well, life?
Life.
What's your thoughts?
Look, my mindset's very, very strong, and the reason for that is my perspective on life. Yeah. So when things happen, my perspective is, look, I was born in Australia, regardless if I was born the richest person in Australia, the poorest person in Australia, female, male, whatever. Yeah,
Yep.
Skin colour. Who cares? You're born in Australia. You are one of the luckiest people in the world. The issues that we think we face on a daily basis and that we get stressed about and that we think that life's so tough, in reality mean nothing. We have a roof over our heads. We have running water. We have electricity. We are the lucky ones.
Yeah.
And that's how I think. Like, nothing gets to me, regardless if it's financial, work, family. Like, who cares? I think health is very important. So health obviously affects your mindset. The health of your closest friends and family affects your mindset. But other than that, nothing should worry you, because money comes and goes, possessions come and go. As long as you're happy, you're healthy, you live in this country, life is good. That is the end. Yeah, like that's it. I think if you look at some countries like Africa, for example, these people face real challenges on a daily basis. They can't just go down to the shop and buy food and go to the tap and get water and have an air conditioner when it's hot and a heater when it's cold and a bed to sleep in every night. And these people would do anything to worry about the things we worry about. They would pay to worry about the things we worry about, So I just think it's perspective.
I think that's awesome. I read a great quote from an NBA player recently. His name escapes me, but essentially they were asking about now that you've reached this level of the NBA, is there a lot of pressure? And he was like, pressure? I play basketball. You want to talk about pressure? Go to the homeless man who's struggling to find somewhere to sleep. Go to the single mother who's hustling just to make sure that rent's made. I get paid a lot of money to play a game, and to call it anything more than that is insulting to regular people.
Exactly.
How has that mindset influenced your attitude to property and sort of taking that step, walking in that thing? I think I have a theory, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
I guess that look, it just puts things into perspective. To me, it's a number, and that's all it is. There's no emotion attached to it. I realise that these are financial decisions, and that is it. And there's no fear behind it. When I read these headlines now, there's no fear, because at the end of the day, if I lost everything, it's money. That is it. Who cares? But if I make a lot of money, sure, life gets more enjoyable and things get easier financially, but it's just money. I'm healthy, I'm happy, I have amazing friends, I live in a beautiful country. I can have no money and I can still walk down to the beach and sit on it and watch the ocean go by. It's just made things a lot more a lot easier, I guess, because it's just money. That's how I think about it.
Tell me this: do you have any mentors, or do you have any? What inspires you or inspired you in the realm of property? Is there anyone? Is there any mentors, gurus that you really respect?
Yeah. So as I was coming through, like I got expelled at 15, and then coming up through my first property purchases and stuff like that, I met a guy by the name of Chris Gray, who's a property expert, lives an incredible lifestyle. He was very, very kind to give me a lot of his time, knowledge, introduced me to a very cool network of people he knew. So he's been the biggest influence for sure. And then just a lot of people I met along the way. Yourself, for example, our good friend Pedro, my parents. Look, just everyone you meet, I feel like you can take things from every single person you meet and put them into practice in your own life. So look, I've got a lot of mentors. Now I've just moved into this new buyer's agency space. Daniel Trelease, who's the principal of our agency, Ben Handler, who's helping me, move very quickly in this buyer's agent space. All of these people have a different position in my life to help me in different facets. Yeah.
What about somebody who doesn't have somebody in their immediate network? Is there any, gurus from TV or from the internet? Anyone you really respect, their message, their opinion, their strategy?
Yeah. So I guess if we were talking like on a big scale, someone like Gary Vaynerchuk, incredible influence in my life, especially for the mindset side of things and perspective. The way I invest, Warren Buffett, I take a lot of what he does and I turn that and put it into the property space. So it's long term. It's being conservative, but making the right decisions and smart decisions. Yeah. Tony Robbins, for example, another one, massive with mindset. So I take parts from all of these individuals and put them. I take what I believe that I can use in my life and I put it to work for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I guess anyone has access to that. Yeah, everyone's got access to YouTube,
Absolutely.
to podcasts. So I believe what you feed your brain with has a massive impact on the way you act, the way you see the world, and that's what I do. I feed my brain with really good stuff.
Well, that's right, and that's where this is where concepts come from, because I have no idea about this concept, and it'd be interesting to sort of have these conversations with people who do understand it.
Yeah.
Now, let's step away from the theoretical for a moment. I think we've got your story pretty much handled. I want you to teach me a little bit about property. So, how do I know at least in relationships, at least in work, what we think we want and what we actually want can be quite different.
Right.
So, how does a person make a decision around what property is right for them, and how do we sort of start asking those questions?
Sure. So I guess if we're talking like the fundamentals of property, location does 80% of the heavy lifting.
Yep.
Yeah. So I believe if you get the location right, you've got the majority of the foundation right. Then asset selection in that location.
Can you tell me what do you mean by asset selection?
So it's choosing the right property in that location to get the best return, right?
Yep.
Now, my philosophy around property is, like I said, I'm a conservative person. Some might say, some might not say.
I wouldn't call you conservative.
I'm conservative investing, yeah. So when I invest, I like to not look for the next hotspot, not look for where I'm going to make my next 100,000 or next whatever it is in a short period of time. I'm looking at what this suburb and property has done for the last 30 odd years that we have the data for. It gives me a very, very good understanding of what the property is going to do for the next 30, 50, 100 years. Yeah. So my philosophy is I want to buy blue chip property in very, very good, desirable locations in Sydney and Melbourne just for myself. Sure, there's Brisbane and Perth and Adelaide and all the other ones, but I myself like saying Sydney and Melbourne in good locations, close to the CBDs, but not in the CBDs, because with property, supply and demand, generally in CBDs, there's no height restrictions. So there mightn't be any more land, but if there's more demand for property in the CBDs, they just build up.
Yep.
Right? You want to be generally close to water or close to the hip spots where the young professionals with the big incomes want to be. Yeah.
Sure.
You want to get down to the property thing. So you want your property to be scarce. You don't want your property to be the same as all the other properties. Because, for example, if John Smith sells his property, your property is very similar to John Smith's. He's in a little bit of financial difficulties and he needs to sell that property in a hurry. He then sells that property at a discount, right? If your property is very, very similar to that property, the bank comes out and values that property and yours is the same, that's what your property is worth now.
I understand.
Right. So you need your property to be scarce. So it has to have, for me, I buy apartments in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, Lower North Shore, Inner West. So your Coogis, Bondis, Clovellies, Annandale's, Leichhardt's, Balmains, your Kirribilli, Neutral Bay, Cremorne, you know?
Yeah.
And then in Newcastle as well, Cooksville, Bar Beach, Merriweather. So these areas are very desirable. They have high disposable incomes, people who want to live there. There's a line down the street in summer for these people to rent these properties.
Sure.
There's no more land. Everyone wants to live there. Supply and demand, like I said, there's 2 people who want that property. What's going to happen to the price? It goes up. It's going to be a scarce asset, like I said. So in apartments, it's got to have lock-up garage because you try and find a park in Bondi on a Saturday. Impossible, right?
That's correct.
It's got to have parking. I like to stick above. I don't like doing one bedders because it limits the market you attract. Yeah.
Yep.
So there's got to be a minimum of 2 bedrooms, north facing.
Is that for the light?
Exactly. Yeah. It's you sort of get my gist. Yeah. And
Yes.
then,
So is it fair to say that you have, at least for your own personal investment strategy, kind of these criteria that you think are really, really important?
for sure.
And when you, let's say, okay, so I'm going to retain you as a buyer's agent.
Yeah.
I would tell you a brief that I think is appropriate. So,
Yeah.
would I come and say, look, I'm looking for a 3-bedroom house, a two-car garage. It needs to have a backyard for the kids. Is that what it is?
Sure.
I give you a general brief like that, or
Yeah, so like for owner occupiers, for example, that's
Yeah.
exactly what they do. So they're going to come to me and say, look, Jack, generally they've been struggling to find the home they like. We keep going to auction and missing the property. Look, we want a 4-bedroom house in Bondi. It's got to have a swimming pool. It's got to have, a garage. It's got to have a backyard for the kids and the dog. And we go, look, yep, sweet. This is the budget. And then we go and hustle and find that property, yeah?
that's awesome.
For investment, it sort of works the same. So they're going to come to me and say, look, Jack, this is the budget I've got. This is what I think I want. And then I give them my opinion. I think, look, this is what works. This is what's in demand in these areas all the time. Look, if you look at this is the growth we've had over the past 20 or 30 odd years. This is, a good indicator of, I think, what's going to happen in the future. And then we work together. So generally people take my advice and listen to my opinion, say, look, you know what you're doing, go and find us that property.
Look, I wish I'd sought some advice. I didn't know you when I bought my property, so I'm very happy with it. But I feel like now speaking to you, I could have done a heck of a lot better.
Yeah.
But let's. We've actually got a Facebook Live question. This has never happened before, so I'm feeling quite.
Oh, we're feeling good.
We're feeling really good. I feel like Rogan right now. Bring it up, Jamie. What's your thoughts on the current state of prices in Sydney, and do you think that the outlook is positive in the coming years?
Absolutely. Like I said, in Sydney, Sydney's a big place. You try, like I said, buy in eastern suburbs of Sydney, Lower North Shore, Inner West, impossible.
Yes.
Very, very strong demand still. Now, like I said, you go out west and you're looking at house and land package and stuff like that. Yeah, they're struggling out there. Outlook for the future, we don't know what's happening with the economy, yeah? We don't know what's happening with the election. But I think if you think long term, not in the next 1 to 3 years, but I'm thinking 5 to 10 years plus, mate, it's very strong. The outlook's great, yeah? I guess it's just about having that long term view. And it's about being contrarian as well. So now, the thing is with people are very, very funny. It's herd mentality, isn't it? So when the newspapers say it's a boom and, the headlines are just banging out property, that's when everyone wants to buy because there's a FOMO, there's a fear of missing out, yeah? Now, the headlines are saying doom and gloom, don't buy, don't do this. Everyone's retracting and not buying, but you have to be contrarian. You should be buying now so you don't have the competition. You have a better selection of property. You have better negotiating power with the agent because there isn't as many buyers around, so they want to do a deal. And then sit on that property. And then when the headlines start saying buy now, buy now, buy now, you've bought. Let all those other people fight for the less desirable property because there's more people. There's only so many properties on the market. You've got your property. Sit there, let everyone fight, and let the market do its thing.
I'm about to ask you some questions that are going to make you very popular in one faction, and they're probably going to make you very unpopular in another faction.
Tell me. Talk to me.
I'm going to go negotiate with an agent,
Yeah.
and what do I do to prepare? Because agents are, I think, some of the most fierce negotiators. And remember, I negotiate professionally, often with the Department of Public Prosecutions
Yeah.
and the director in relation to sentences. So I know what a fierce negotiation is, and I think real estate agents are fiercer by far.
Well, that's what they're paid to do, right?
Well, how do we prepare?
Look, for me, I think you're looking at purchasing a property. 3 things you should always do.
Yes.
Right? Always. We buy a lot of property, and we always do this. We've seen a lot of property in Southern Sydney, and we always do this, right? Person building, if it's an apartment in a strata building, a strata report, and an independent valuation, right? Now, negotiating with an agent is a tough gig, but let's just say you go and get an independent valuation done on that property. So it costs you $660 generally. It's $600 plus GST. You get a professional valuer who values for a living to go and value that property and not give you an exact dollar figure, but to give you a range. So this property's worth between X and X, and I think the midpoint's X, right? It's then almost an insurance policy because he is a licensed professional and he gives you an advice. That's almost an insurance policy. He's telling you what the property's worth. You then make an educated decision because instead of you just going on realestate.com and going, oh, Smith Street sold for this, John Street sold for that, and it's worth X, you've got a piece of paper telling you. You then go to the agent and say, look, independent valuers come with this. Generally, there isn't a lot of buyers in the market, mate. I'm not silly. And this is what I'm paying. Take it or leave it. Now, it's a lot easier to do that with investment because it's just numbers. I can understand when it's a family home. You might pay a little bit more. But that is the best negotiating power right there. You know, you need to get an independent val done. Boom, this is what the property's worth. You can still do your own research and think, look, yeah, I agree. And there's your negotiating power. You can make an educated decision. Don't let the agent tell you what the property's worth.
You know, in preparing for this podcast, I listened to a bunch of property podcasts, and no one suggested that. It seems like it's a great idea. It's a great idea.
It is like it's to me, it's a non-negotiable. It's just you have to do it.
Absolutely. If I'm going to plonk down hundreds of thousands of dollars, then
Millions sometimes.
yeah, with the idea of not paying a few $100
Yeah.
to protect myself is absurd.
Look, in a market like we've just had over the past 3 or 4 years, people are paying a lot more than what property's actually worth. Yeah. And I can understand that when it's you owner occupy a home because there's emotion attached to it. You're going to live there for a very long time. You're going to bring your family up in it and all the rest of it. So I can understand you paying a little bit more because it's your own home. But when it's investment, it's just numbers. Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Well, that's it's so funny. The advice we used to give when we dealt with equities and when we dealt with shares is it's just numbers. You make an educated guess, and if your return is 5% here and 6% there, you'd be insane.
Yeah.
And unless you're personally attached to the product, I mean, I don't think anyone who's buying blue chip stocks cares particularly which company they invest in, unless it's going to give them a good rate of return.
Exactly.
So I don't know why property would be any different.
It's no different at all.
Okay.
It's just numbers.
So with regards to so we get our valuation report, we get our PEST, we get our strata. How do we do our due diligence to make sure we're dealing with, how do we know that what we're being sold is the truth?
In what way?
Well, let's say that agent's job is usually to get the buyer. It's to inspire us. It's they'll be like, look, there's not a lot of demand here. There's not a lot of demand there. This is a unique opportunity. The amount of unique opportunities that I see on realestate.com, I mean, it's a lot.
And the perfect investment opportunity.
Perfect investment, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the videos. The videos
Yeah.
is a new thing that's come through, which
real estate agents are rock stars now. Have you not seen?
That's right. You're the new master chefs.
Yeah. Look, I guess it comes down to doing like the right due diligence. I mean, like I said, the first thing, like I said, if for an investment, it's about finding the right location. Like I just said, my criteria is close to CBDs, in desirable locations, generally around water, beaches. So you found the location, then it's about finding the right asset in that location. So like that thing with the scarcity and if you're buying an apartment, small blocks of less than 12 with no lifts, gyms, pools, because you have big strata fees and all that stuff comes together. And then once you find that, doing the due diligence. So like I said, strata report, custom building, independent valuation. talk to people on the street, do your own research online, bring all that together, and I think you've had you're going to have a very good chance of securing the right property at the right price. And if you can't do it, that's when we come in.
So let's say I want to get a buyer's agent. What do you say to people who say, "Well, it's a lot of money. It's it's a big expense. Well,
Sure.
I can't justify that. I'm not looking at $1 million property. I just want something relatively cheap."
Yeah,
Do you still think a buyer's agent has a role to play and some value to add?
absolutely. I believe people are this is the biggest financial decision you'll ever make in your life. There is not too many things you're going to buy in your life that cost more than a home. Yeah.
Yes.
A buyer's agent generally charges about 2%. Now, for investment, if you bought an investment, if that buyer's agent was able to get you a property that outperforms the market as a whole, and even the properties inside the market what you've bought by 0.5% or 1% a year, your fee pays for itself tenfold, right?
Yes.
On top of that, you have the added bonus if you're time poor and don't have the resources and the knowledge and the time to go and source the property. It's paid for itself there because you concentrate on what you make money in. And generally, we negotiate a property very, very well. And again, your fee can be made up in the property purchase itself. Like real estate agents, like you said, aren't dumb people. They're master negotiators. And if they can feel the littlest bit of attachment to that property, they will pull every string possible and get every last dollar they can out of you. With a buyer's agent, mate, there's no emotion, right? It's business, and that's it. So I guess it's about having an abundant mindset as well. You're buying real estate generally to make money, and to make money you have to spend money. So I don't know too many people, especially like my parents' friends and stuff like that. I know a lot of people that have bought investments. They've taken advice off their accountant, off dad at a barbecue, you know what I mean? Like everyone takes advice off people who think they know. And I don't know too many people who have done well in property. Now, property has done well, but I don't know too many people who have done well in property because they buy the wrong asset, they take the wrong advice. And look, if they would have paid that fee up front or got the right advice up front, they'd be doing a lot better. So the funny thing is, if I was to say to someone right now, look, if you give me, let's say we're just talking $1 million property, give me 20 grand, I'll go find you $1 million property, and I guarantee in 10 years' time it's worth $2 million, they'd pay it. They'd pay the 20 grand.
Of course they
But
would.
we can't guarantee that. But it happens, yeah. Like that's what we do. And if you look at the past, property's done quite well. If you buy the right property, you're going to do very, very well. So I think that the small fee you pay for the right advice. Look, there's a lot of buyers agents out there that I wouldn't use, but if you get the right one that buys you the right property, it's worth every cent, I believe.
Jack, you're talking to a lawyer. All right. I know the value of advice. My clients know the value of advice,
Yeah.
and I face the same problem. I think that there's this view around professionals, rightly or wrongly, that every professional thinks other professionals is out to screw them over. I think my dentist overcharges, I think my doctor overcharges, I think my accountant overcharges. They think I overcharge. It's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
But the reality is that to become an expert in your field takes time and effort. And I have told clients, you spend $1 now to save $1,000 later. That's literally how. That's doing it properly up front is amazing.
100%.
And I think that the world of law, especially now that there's a lot of templates and stuff online, people think that they're Atticus Finch and they do their own law, and then it would have cost them $500 to do it properly, covered by insurance and protected, and now they're in a $300,000 legal dispute, and
Yeah.
they were about to lose everything.
Well, that's people are always trying to save a buck. But yeah, I believe the saying you have to spend money to make money is true. You don't have to spend $1 million, right? But spending a cent to make 2 cents, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Dollars and cents.
Exactly right.
So you mentioned abundance mentality a moment ago. When you talk about abundance mentality, what does that mean to you?
Having an abundant mindset, seeing abundance in everything, seeing opportunity in everything, right? Like, the thing is, no one wants to see anyone do better than themselves, and I believe that's wrong. There's enough in this world for everyone. That it's so funny. You see, for example, let's talk about lawyers, right?
Yep.
You're the biggest law firm, and then you see another little lawyer come up and start taking a little bit of your business. You believe it's your business, but before he was there, you weren't tackling that business anyway.
Yeah.
So it was always there, right? There is enough for everyone in the world, and that's what you have to believe. You don't have to believe just because he's doing well that he's taking off you. There's enough out there. Go and get it. And that's what the abundant mindset is just seeing the opportunity in everything, and there's enough for everyone. So you don't have to be upset that he's doing well and you're not, because there's plenty for you too.
I think that's awesome, and I agree with that fully.
Yeah.
I think that it's amazing. I've often had this discussion. There is the opportunities that exist where there's the amount of money to be made when two lawyers know what they're doing versus when one would starve. It's impressive and amazing that these sort of attitudes prevail, and they seem to prevail quite a lot. But I think that. Do you think that's a generational thing? Do you think that generally, or do you think that there's optimists and pessimists in every?
Definitely. Yeah, I don't believe in like everyone talks about millennials at the moment. I don't believe in them. They're people, right?
Yeah.
You can't generalize a generation of people by calling them a millennial. We're human beings. There has been great human beings and shit human beings in every generation. Do you not believe like it?
Absolutely.
Saying that millennials don't want to have a go and are
lazy,
and
silly.
They're
sheltered. I mean, I think that
entitled. That's what I was looking for. Like everyone says, but like if you look back in the past, everyone's been like that. There's been those human beings in every generation.
Well, millennial, in my opinion, is one of the most condescending words. It's a word that's used to infantilize an entire generation of hardworking young people who've come up in an environment that realistically has some very real challenges that need to be overcome.
Absolutely. And the funny thing about it is the people calling them these lazy, entitled human beings are the people who raise them. The reason they are like that is because of you, right?
Yeah,
you are your surroundings.
It's one of those things that truly boggles my mind, and I think it's designed just to say, look, that if they put in the same effort we put in, they'd be somewhere else. And I don't think the world is the same as it was. And
it's not.
And the reality is that this generation might be the first generation to actually financially be worse off than the previous generation. It's never happened before. So there are some real challenges there. But as you said, there's enough for everyone.
Yeah.
And if you go out there and get it, you may not have the most, but you might have the most you can have, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So going back to property markets, tell me a bit about Melbourne.
Look, I don't know a great deal about Melbourne. I specialise in Sydney and Newcastle. But again, Melbourne, you read the headlines, probably come off 30% or something, which I don't believe is true. There is some great suburbs in Melbourne that are doing exceptionally well. And there's some people spending some big money down there. So Tim Gurner just sold out a building in like record time. It was like hours.
Who's Tim Gurner?
Lance Gurner, big developer.
Cool.
Young guy, super switched on. I think it's called St. Mortez is the building he just sold out. 20, 30, $40 million penthouses.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty incredible. So it's coming off 30%, I don't believe that.
Well, yeah, maybe it would have taken him less hours to sell it.
Exactly. Well, like, how do you start a building any quicker? Like that's what I mean. You have to educate yourself.
What about off the plan property? Do you guys work in that, or what do you say to that?
No, we don't go anywhere near it.
Okay.
But I guess, look, for owner-occupiers, if there's this building that you love and it's in a great location and you want to be in it for the lifestyle, sure. For investment, no, we don't touch it. Because generally in off-the-plan developments, they're big buildings. 90% of the apartments in the buildings are the same. Massive strata fees. And like I said, there's no scarcity to your assets. So if the apartment below yours, John Smith's in financial difficulties and he needs to sell that apartment and he sells it at a discount of what it's really worth, that affects the price of your apartment.
Yep.
And you don't want that. You don't want other people to control the price of your apartment by, their financial misfortune. So we don't touch it, no.
And tell me this, if there is one thing that somebody has to understand about your industry, one concept that would give them the biggest advantage, what is the biggest concept in property investment that you want people to walk away from?
I reckon play the long game. There's no such thing as overnight money in property. If your property is going to make you $1 million in a year or double in a year or whatever the spiel is you're getting sold, run away from it because it doesn't happen. Property is a long-term game. The great thing about property is leverage. So the actual cash amount you put in and the return you can get on that cash is ridiculous, yeah. There's not any other asset class you can do it with. So you put in 50 grand, you buy a $500,000 property, and you make 10% on that $500,000 property. Essentially, you've made 100% of your initial investment because 10% off 550 grand, you put 50 grand in, you made 100%. But it's play the long game. You're in property for a long time, yeah. So you buy property today. You're not really, I don't believe, going to see good gains for at least 7 to 10 years, right? And the longer you hold it, the more money you're going to make. So don't try and make money overnight. That's the biggest thing, because that's what people try to do. Everyone wants to get rich overnight. Get rich quick. Let's go buy some Bitcoins. It's going to be $100,000 by the end of the year. Everyone buys into it. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as easy money. And if there is, trust me, easy come, easy go.
Well, that's a fantastic lesson. And what do you think are the 3 biggest lessons you've learned that have helped you in this field?
3 biggest lessons. I really haven't had any unfortunate lessons, like learning from mistakes. I haven't made any mistakes because I've educated myself before making decisions.
Be careful, Jack. As soon as you say that, the universe is going to come with a stick.
I don't. Everyone goes on about you learn from your mistakes and all this stuff. I believe there's so much education out there now and so many people that will help you. You shouldn't really make a lot of mistakes. Sure, if you're doing this thing that's never been done before, you're going to make mistakes. But if you're doing something like property investment or becoming a lawyer or whatever it is, there is so much education and so many people that have been there and made the mistakes. Learn from them.
Yeah.
You don't have to make the mistake yourself, right? So I don't really have 3 lessons, but I think the biggest thing is educate yourself. That is it. It's a massive financial decision. If it takes you a year to educate yourself before you purchase property, or 2 years, who cares? Because you're going to hold it for 20 or 30. So just educate yourself and make sure you make the right decision.
Jack, you have been an amazing guest. Thank you so much for giving up your Sunday to educate us on property.
Mate, thank you.
And to anyone who's interested, Jack is a buyer's agent at Trelease Associates. If you just leave a comment on the page, I'll get you his contact details. It has been another episode 2 of Concepts with Kalanta, the concept of property investment with Mr. Jack Henderson. Bye, everybody. Enjoy your Sunday.
Boom.
Boom.